without any further ado, y'all, we are here with the one and only Angelica Ross. Thank you for joining me in this conversation today. And the first thing I just want to say off of the top is that I'm really looking forward to this convo, wide-ranging convo about the past, present, and future of human rights for human beings, about making sure that trans folks, who are the most marginalized and excluded folks, are not left behind in our struggle for collective liberations. And you and I have been having you and I have been having this offline conversation for months now, and it just seemed like it was the right time to bring this out into the public.
Absolutely.
So for making space. I'll start there, and I'll play the interviewer just to get you rolling, and then I'll get out the way. Where do you see us in this current moment right now, like with the darkness that's descending, upon all of our oppressed communities, but especially upon the trans community?
I mean, I saw a recent interview with, like Hannah Nicole Jones, I think, and like April Ryan and Don Lemon and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, I remember hearing her say, like, if you wanted, like, yes, look, I'm a hopeful girl, but if you want me to sprinkle some sugar on some stuff and beat around the bush about some things, that I ain't got that in me.
You got the wrong one. You got the
wrong one. I ain't got it in me. Now's not the time for all of that. We need truth tellers. Yeah. And right now, I think that we're just in a time right now. Our current environment is very indicative of our relationship to the truth, both in our personal lives and collectively as a society. I think too often our experience, especially as citizens of, I'll say, under the umbrella of we the people, somehow we've abdicated our responsibility to these representatives who aren't really representing our best interests. But the reality is that coming from, sort of my spiritual foundation is always about, there is no separation. We call it oneness in environment. And that basically what's going on in our current times is a reflection of our lives. And so we're in a time right now where so many people think that they can separate themselves from what's going on over here or over there, and cannot realize that there is a reflection here in this environment. And so what they are doing over there to them, baby, when the world turns, as the world turns, as the show used to go, it will get over to here, sweetie, in due time. So, I think we're just right now distracted, complacent, ill-informed, and I think thirsty for a sense of power in a hopeless place. When people feel powerless, they reach for the easiest things to feel power, like bullying on kids or, doing certain things. And right now in this moment, it's trans people. What does debating trans people's lives have to do with your grocery bill and your minimum wage and affordable housing and access to healthcare for you? Trans people accessing healthcare is not taking anything away from you.
No, and trans folk ain't the reason why can't nobody pay the bills. Trans folk ain't the reason why they're spending all our tax dollars incinerating kids in other countries. And that's really what it came down to. Like, the more that I reflected on it, it's like you seek out a scapegoat, somebody that you can marginalize, that you feel like they don't have people, so that, when you do something to them or say something about them, that there's not going to be a lot of political blowback for you. And I'll just tell you, before I ever got involved in electoral politics, this was back in 2021, it was after another Black trans woman had got murdered. I want to say that it was in Louisiana. And I posted, this is a time when I was really only known in the Black Muslim community, which is a beautiful community. Is actually, all of the polling indicates that, like, with respect to LGBTQ plus issues, the Muslim community is far more open than any of the other Abrahamic religious traditions. But nonetheless, you will have some folks that are, closed-minded folks, like Outcast might have put it.
In every religion, in every culture, in every race.
You're going to find them. And what I said at that point in time was, like, look, this is not about your faith or how you might understand it. If you are contributing to an environment where the hateful language is getting people's lives taken, Do you understand the gravity of, complicity in that kind of work? And the way that you just framed it is so clear. Like, it's a kind of political manipulation, because they want you looking over here as somebody that they think is fragile and marginal and don't have no people that will have their back, so that they can continue to, to take your rights. So basically, so they can get
but here's this,
talk to me.
But here's the situation.
Mm.
This is the thing about them over there. This is where I have to give them some kind of credit.
Say it.
Because they're very organized. They have been collecting information, and the data tells them that y'all don't like trans people. The data tells them that some of y'all, even that calls yourself liberal,
right,
still have issues with trans people, and are sort of like, the stuff doesn't come up until all of a sudden. Now, I should not say, because the reality is, this that's happening between you and I is groundbreaking, in the sense that I have had sit downs. This is not my first time at the rodeo. I have had sit downs with Kamala Harris, with Joe Biden, face to face on several occasions, not just one time. So you invited me to the White House is not going to get me really excited, because I done been there several times. You know what I'm saying? I've been on the agenda. Right. So that's not, so what I'm seeing right now is they definitely take advantage of that nostalgia and power of people wanting to be close and proximity to power and all those things. But after that is worn off, now, girl, I'm asking the real questions, and I need to ask these questions. And when I realize that you cannot say from the chest, that you support trans people, not that you would leave it up to states, right? Because that's not what we say when we talk about bodily autonomy for women and their access to abortion rights. We don't want to leave that up to the states there. So why would we leave it up to the states when it comes up to trans people's lives? If you can't be across the board that we all deserve access to this thing called the American dream, access to healthcare, access to good education, access to fair housing, if you cannot talk on that basic thing from the chest, then I mean, look, I don't want it. I'm not going to tell nobody else what to do, but I was looking for people who was talking that talk, and when I was looking, I found Butch Ware.
I mean, listen, and I'll add to it, like police persecution, police violence, police sexual abuse. Like, the trans community is more subjected to those things than any other communities. And I mean, listen, I've said this 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more times. No one should ever be subjected to discrimination, oppression, and especially not violence because of their gender identity or their gender expression. It's inadmissible. You can't accept it. Our basic human dignity rebels against that. And it's not about, your identity or your understanding. It's about you wanting the same freedoms for every other human being that you would cherish for yourself. That's it.
That's it.
It's collective liberation, or it's no liberation at all. Because if you allow,
but what you're saying though, you're talking about a social contract that is an agreement on how we are treating trans people. But the reality is that this has been couched into concern for children. This argument has been couched.
Oh, wait, you're telling me that the Epstein class is concerned about children? Child, please.
They don't give a damn about them kids. They don't give a damn about them kids. So this has been couched in that kind of conversation, when in reality, they don't want trans people to exist. Yeah. And so here I am at this place where, look, I try to think that I'm a pretty fair person. I'm a pretty fair and balanced person, a pretty rational person. I don't have kids yet. Yeah. And I know that, but when I do have kids, certain things is not going down in this house. Now, they can express themselves however they want to, but as an adult and me raising my kids, I know that I guess I have the boundaries of saying, everybody, in this house, you still 16 or you still 17 or you doing whatever and blah, blah, blah. But what I know my responsibility is as a leader in the LGBTQIA+ community is I need to make sure that the environment is ready and safe to welcome those kids when they turn of age to make decisions for themselves, that they're now coming into an environment that they're not also just being targeted for violence and sexual violence and all these different things. You know, so exploitation, all these things that are out there to be had. If we're going to keep everything real. But what I want is for parents who have made the decision to support their children, that they can have all the access to all the resources, doctors, community people, mentorship, whatever they want. And those other people that can't, you know, I'm sure that child might find a magazine, a website, of somebody they follow, and when they parent, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff that is kid. And then when they are,
you don't be able to block out the world. That's not how it works to begin with. Yeah.
I'm going to be here to fight for, because I think that when we talk about, because I know you got kind of tripped up a little bit for a moment when we was having you was having a conversation. I know the media kind of like really
it was a bad job by me. You know, transphobic interviewer, you know, caught me on my back foot and had me repeating back his framing of the question, and I should know better than that.
Because that's media training 101.
Well, I mean, and
repeating back the question, you know, to frame it in your own language. Yeah.
And to make it, you know, like we used to say back home, that much more worselier. Like I had been doing that, you know, throughout the whole thing when he was trying to talk about, you know, illegal, you know, immigrants. I came back, you know, with undocumented people. To be perfectly honest, you know, it was just a bad job, and I got to be accountable for, you know, like not showing up. But the reality is I have never and will never take a position discriminating against the trans community in sports or.
But can you even say that you were prepared for that job? Meaning, yes, you're prepared. You're preparing yourself for the job of, you know, representing all these people, but it could have been a spot that was missed, obviously, in the sense of being prepared to 100%. Represent the trans community as well. Because what we need for politicians to realize is we're actually not just a talking point. Some of us are experts at communications and would be a great member of people's teams.
Listen, you already know that you name your position on my team, so that part is obvious. You know, both in the campaign and, you know, once we're in office. But I want to go back and ask you a question about something that you said, because do you really think that they can make trans folk disappear, or do you think that they know that they can score cheap points by kicking somebody when they're down? Like, I really don't think that they have it in their heads that they can make trans folks go away. Like, I was reading Asada Shakur's biography the other day, and she was talking about how when she ran away, it was a trans woman that took her in, you know, when she was.
Oh, I know. I love that story.
Beautiful, beautiful passage. It's like, you know, been here, not going no place. I don't think that they have the illusion in their head that they're just going to make trans folk disappear. But what I think is that maybe some of them do. Maybe some of the genuine Nazis do. But I think a lot of people are cynical, and a lot of the politicians are cynical, and they know, like you said, they've run the numbers, they've done the calculations, and they know.
So if they've run the numbers and done the calculations, let's just talk about this in a like, what does it really mean to make a population disappear? When you make a population disappear, you first start by creating a name that others them all along, you know, children of darkness, criminals, you know, sexual deviants, you know, whatever these, you know, frames that they do so that they can now get a blanket statement on you. And then what happens is
dehumanizing language as the framework to begin with. Got it?
Yep. Absolutely. And then the next part is they don't think for one moment that they can stop trans people from existing. I don't think that they actually believe that. What I do think they believe is that they can make America great again. That they can roll back the time clock to a time where trans people only came out at night, where we were discriminated enough on jobs in a way where as soon as I showed my ID and anything didn't match up, I didn't have a shot in the world. They want to go back to when they were dating us and their wives didn't know what a trans person was. And they could then pretend that they didn't know what one was. What do you mean? I don't know what that is.
I think we've reached our agreement on exactly what they're up to. But you just raised the next piece of the conversation then, because if we talked about the present and the darkness that we're sitting in, and the need to fight back, and the need to push back, and the need to reframe the discourse, not get caught up in the way that they frame things. Because the other part, you and I, when we talk offline, it's usually about two things. It's about like what we've learned from the Black freedom struggle to help us in this moment as all kind of oppressed people. And then two, it's about spirituality and the way that we lean into, to our respective traditions, myself as a Muslim, you as a Buddhist. So I think that I'll ask you those two questions first. Like, one, what do we take from the liberation struggle, the Black liberation struggle, queer liberation struggle in this moment that we bring forward? What are some of the things that Miss Angelica wants us thinking about?
I mean, I don't know how many times that we now have to remind folks that there would not have been a March on Washington had it not been for Dr. King asking for Bayard Rustin to organize it, who was an openly gay Black man. Yep. We also sort of miss, like, when you've seen movies, there's certain great, theater plays and movies, like the movie Fences with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. They do such an amazing performance. And one of my favorite lines in that is when she like yells over at him and she's like, I know, don't you see I've been standing right next to you? Like, he's talking about, as a Black man, all of the oppression and the odds that he's facing and all these different things. And she's like, well, hello.
You think I didn't feel that as a Black woman?
As a Black woman, you think I don't feel that? So one thing I need for folks to get through their heads is that when it comes to the media and the machine and all that, it's always going to favor whiteness. But if you want the truth, ask a Black trans woman, because what you're going to get is someone who is completely Black, meaning like, I'm not leaving that behind, and I'm not tap dancing for no one. I'm not interested in making white people feel comfortable. I'm not interested. It's not something I'm interested in doing. And that's why my career is doing what it's doing. But I'm gonna just say this, but it's doing some cute things because I'm aligning with people who know a real one and who want to be aligned with the real one. And it basically is a shortcut to the getting rid of the BS.
You and I didn't have never had any problem talking about anything, because real recognized real. So I understood exactly where you were standing and why you were standing there. So I'll throw two in. The first for me is James Baldwin. Right? You want to talk about like the most critically acute theorists of the Black condition, and you want to keep James Baldwin out your mouth. And look, Malcolm's always right over my shoulder, always in my office.
And that's one reason right there why I was like down from the beginning. I was like, oh, this brother is constantly talking about Malcolm, and
Malcolm was down with James Baldwin. Malcolm and James Baldwin were politically aligned. Please continue.
No, but I was just going to say that, when you have someone such as yourself as well, like, I know that, you might, face these things where, you're a handsome dude. And Amanda Seals, when I talked to Amanda Seals one time, she was like, and I was telling her that I wanted to run for office. She was like, well, you're beautiful. She was like, but ain't no pretty people in politics. And then I immediately stopped. I was like, you know what, you're right. I'm not going to run for office. So, cause I was like, you know what, Carrie too. Yeah, you probably right.
I'm gonna have to beg to differ and go all Cassius Clay on you. I'm pretty. I'm a bad man. What another Black Muslim reference. We gonna go right to Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely. But what I really enjoy like about you is, again, you're constantly carrying references to the movement. And so just like Malcolm tried to spend his time, even though people thought, that he was taking up the spotlight and he might be getting too big of a head and he's doing this and that, he was constantly referencing where he was learning these things from. And that's what and to me, I think that one of the things that you're dialed into is that one of the things that has put us in this country into such a critical condition is the state of our education system, is the state of people just not being educated.
Malcolm said it. He said, of all of our fields of study, history is best qualified to reward our research. And that's the reason why, like I'm always asking this question about the past, because if you don't know where you came from, then how do you know where you even are, right? Like what trajectory have you been traveling? And what I've always told my students for the last 20 plus years is the only reason why an oppressor ever tries to erase your past is so that when they tell you who you are, you have no choice but to believe them. You don't have another narrative. You can't tell your own stories. You can't sing the praises of a James Baldwin, who, by the way, told us all where to be standing on October 7th, because he said in 1979, open letter to the born again, he said the state of Israel was not created for the salvation of the Jews. The state of Israel was created for the salvation of Western interests. He understood it as imperialism and white supremacy, the same way that Malcolm did. And then that bring us to another legend. The queer theorist, Black female queer theorist, Bell Hooks.
Absolutely.
Bell Hooks reminded us white supremacy is not a white people's problem. White supremacy is threaded through all of our institutions. And many of us got that colonizer living in here and in here, right? no matter what our
internalized. Absolutely. They're in the sunken place. Yes.
Go on.
Kanye, we are not fools, sweetie. You are still in the sunken place, honey.
I know that's right. So I asked the question and then I started to answer it. Let me back up and just give you more room and to talk about the lessons. Or about the lessons from your spirituality.
Well, that's what I was going. That's where I was actually going. Is like in Buddhism, when I tell you the gifts that I have been given by finding this, it's called the SGI, the Soka Gakkai International Nichiren Buddhist Organization. And the lineage of this organization is rooted in radical resistance and the dismantling of hierarchy and oppressive systems. Yep. And when I look back at the history of it, Tsunasaburo Makaguchi, who sort of founded the practice, the SGI, or at least our Buddhist lay organization, he died in prison opposing the Japanese militarist government who wanted to conflate the religious practice of the land with the military.
Nationalist imperialist policy. Yep.
And blessing wars and doing all these things. And they were saying, hey, that's not what we're about. That's not what we do. And so there were certain people, and there's such a lineage of folks fighting for that. And then there was Jose Toda, who I believe also ended up dying in prison eventually, but he ended up making a speech around 1960s or something like that. And he called for the abolishment of nuclear weapons, so much so that he said that anyone who would dare to basically construct this would want to wield this sort of technology should be considered a devil fiend and be taken out. So I want you to understand. So listen, I want folks to understand when people see Angelica Ross popping off, and I don't think a Buddhist would talk like that. I need you to understand my history and the people I stand on and with a kind of talk that they talked.
Beautiful. And thank you for that opening, because literally, like, my first academic book is called The Walking Quran, Islamic Education, Embodied Knowledge and History in West Africa. It is about Sufi Muslims. This is the principal spiritual tradition in Islam who, when the slave trade showed up on their shores, they fought back. They organized society to fight back. When the European occupation showed up, they were the people that organized the fight back. All the way through, even to where my principal heroes, it wasn't just Malcolm in jail, but Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, great Senegalese religious scholar and Sufi scholar, was under house arrest for 27 years by the French occupation in West Africa, and yet still created a movement that is thriving to this day. And this is the other thing that you and I are always talking about offline, about how the real work that leads to revolutionary action in the world is the inner work. It is the work on our ego. It is the work on our the spiritual darknesses that persist inside us that keep us from valuing every single human being, right? So the people that I wrote about, they abolished the institution of slavery in the 1770s at a time before anyone else had done it, because they saw further, they saw human dignity, and they were rooted in an understanding that valued every single human being as sacred, and that any harm or oppression that needlessly reached a human being was something that they just could not brook. They just could not accept it. And it's that inner work that leads you to be willing to make those sacrifices. You and I could be in different places, you know, in our careers and our lives, if we were willing to sell out on certain things, but we hold ourselves accountable to a higher authority than just our pocketbook or our ego.
Baby, I know that I could trust and believe. I have looked certain people in the face and they have thought I was nuts, because they're thinking, oh, where would you come from that you would turn this down? Or do you got somebody sponsoring you that's doing this, that you would turn these certain situations? No, I have integrity.
Come on.
And one thing I understand is that so much of what is catching people's attention and all the things, people are just not understanding the underlying aspects of that. Attention is the new currency.
Yeah, real.
And people need to learn to turn that attention inward, because so much of what we see on the outside is a inside job, where America's issue with poverty is a spiritual issue. America is poor in spirit.
And the hard-heartedness that allows you to see your neighbors suffering and in need.
America is poor in spirit.
No question.
From what you just were saying, for them to be able to watch their neighbors in. So when I say poverty is a spiritual condition, this is not a condemnation on the poor person.
Not at all.
This is on the society.
It's a failure of the society. So
absolutely.
So in the Quran, there's this incredible rhetorical, balance that the warnings are always in balance with the glad tidings, because you don't want the human being just caught in how dark it is and how fraught the situation is, or how heavy the oppression is. You always want to also provide light and realize that there's hope if we take action. So let's talk about the future and how we beat these people. You said something off the top, but it brought up Malcolm for me, because Malcolm said we're not outnumbered, we're just out organized, and it leads to the realization that if we get organized to contest for power, we are more than capable of pushing these people back. So I want to ask you, one, because I appreciate your support for the campaign, but I also want to know how I can best show up in service for the trans community, both as I carry out the rest of this campaign, and then, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise after we are in power. So I want to know what the future holds if I'm doing the job right, and then I'm gonna make my case to try to get your endorsement right here on this call, and we'll go from there. So tell me what you would need from me, what you would want to see.
Well, first of all, I want to say that resistance and the sort of concept of it has become extremely cliche for folks.
Yeah.
And performative for others.
Yep.
Who can't even resist Target.
Or Starbucks.
Or Starbucks.
Yep.
And so one of the main messages I need to put up for people is, we have been served by dope dealers, literally by the industry, but also by dopamine dealers and all these different things, in the ways in which we are not practiced at resisting for real. We're too busy wanting to be comfortable and live comfortable lives. Even what is comfortable under fascism? There's no such thing. But we want to at least still grasp for it. So what I want to tell people is, when it comes to resistance, it's a muscle.
Come Conditioning.
You need to get in the gym and condition that. You need some motivation. Go look at Butch Ware's videos when he in the gym and doing the thing. But listen, but you need to get in the gym and work that resistance muscle because it's weak. And some of y'all are too sensitive to have somebody tell you, but I'm a black trans woman. I'm going to tell you the truth. Some of y'all is weak and your resistance muscle is weak and you need to work it out. And you need to start by resisting one of the brands on the BDS list. Let's start with one, whether it's McDonald's, whether it's Barclay, whether it's Chick-fil-A. Let's start with one of them. Y'all don't got to go cold turkey, but some of y'all don't understand when we're talking about doing a, people can't, everybody can't do a no jobs, no, what is it? The shutdown. Today's the shutdown, right?
No work, no school.
No work, no school, no thing. Yep. Right. But some of y'all just making excuses because some of y'all won't turn off the Super Bowl.
No lies detected. Listen, I mean, you know, like, look, you're invited and confirmed to attend at our socialist Super Bowl, our revolutionary rally that we are doing Saturday before the Super Bowl, because who has time for an orgy of consumption on a Sunday, you know, when we can be building revolutionary power on a Saturday? Like, I'm 100% with you. Some of these folks, you know, like literally it is in their
vein. If everybody could turn the TV off, like Kendrick said, turn the TV off. That's when they're going to feel it. If nobody was watching the y'all want to hit the streets and do all this stuff, great. But can you do a simple thing as turn the TV off? Cue the music.
You said it. You said it. You know, the people's weak. I mean, from my standpoint, the way that I look at it is this, like my model. So Malcolm is the start of everything for me. I read his autobiography when I was 15. I read it cover to cover in one night. I wanted what Malcolm had. I went out to my school library. I checked out an English translation of the Quran. The next day I converted to Islam before the week was out. And I was an aspiring Black Muslim revolutionary at age 15. So I always go back to Malcolm, you know, to try to understand, you know, these situations. And what I hear, you know, from Malcolm in that moment where he says, we're not outnumbered, we're just out organized. Then he goes on to continue. He said, never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you are against form your opinions for you. And I think that that's the thing that I learned the most from Malcolm, was to unplug from the conditioning that you have got from these people that has you estimating your own strength through their assessment, as opposed to owning your own strength and building the community that you need to inhabit for resistance.
Well, can I say, let me just say that I have lived that. And the way that I have lived that is basically at the base of me founding Trans Tech Social Enterprises, my nonprofit that basically helps people uplift themselves at the intersection of technology and their passions and figure it out. But it was a situation where, again, they want to roll the time clocks back to when I was on the back pages and the websites selling ass, to in the situation where my price was determined by the market. Mm. And as a trans person, I was communicated to that the only value I have is in my body.
Sexuality commoditized, you know, just like slavery times. Let's be real.
If I needed to eat, if I got hungry, if the apocalypse came, I know how to eat. I know how to eat. And so the situation is that I then started doing this deep dive into myself, knowing that this is the threshold bare minimum that we are all born with, about a body. And I could capitalize off of that. You understand what I'm saying? No, if that's what I need, but there's more, girl. There's so much more under the hood. And so when I started realizing that I could learn to, instead of posing on these websites, I learned to build them. And then from building the websites, I built a clientele around the world where I was building websites and designing flyers, and they didn't even know I was trans. So Ludacris, Cedric the Entertainer, I'm sure they never knew that I was the one that designed some of their backstage passes, but it was a Black trans woman. So what that showed me was, as long as I could pick up a tech skill that I could find work in now more than ever in such a digital age, when some of us are now having to ask the questions, should I leave?
Yeah.
Is it time for me to go? Whether it is from state to state or country to country. But one thing that can be the unifier is technology, because you can work a cybersecurity job from anywhere.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. You know, my priority number one is just remembering that, you know, trans people are working people too, and that the goal is to make this a state that works for everybody, every single working person, and to get the power out of the corporations and the billionaires and bring it back to the people, all of them. So that means healthcare for everybody, housing as a human right for everybody, human rights for human beings, you know, no exclusions because of how you show up in the world. And that if we can do that in the state of California, it is going to break the criminal corporate system that has commoditized the bodies of our ancestors, and that has also commoditized the body of LGBTQ plus communities, you know, just sexualizing, you know, people and using them rather than allowing human beings to flourish and own their power and own their voice. So my goal and my aim, and you can tell me, you know, and hopefully you will tell me as we continue through this process, you'll keep me on the right road. But the goal and the aim is to make sure that we're showing up for everybody, that we're showing up in solidarity for every single oppressed and marginalized community. And I got business with this flag because it's got broken promises that it made to us that it ain't never delivered on. And it's about time we had somebody in power that was actually about making them be about what they say that they're about. See, they want to go back to a past that's a certain kind of way, that looks a certain color, like this, not like this, right? But the thing is that the America that we're hoping for isn't one that's behind us. It's one that's in front of us when we get them to do restorative justice and to heal and make whole all of the people that this empire has broken. And that means land back for indigenous communities. That means reparations for Black folks. That means universal rights for trans people. It means universal rights for everybody. And that's the kind of the beacon that I want to put in the state of California, because I know something that they don't. I know that when we get universal health care, commerce is going to flock to the state of California, because General Motors pays more on health care than it pays on the steel in their vehicles. When we get universal health care, business is going to flourish. When we get housing first as a human right, communities are going to flourish. When we get tuition-free college education, we're going to become an economic powerhouse, and people are going to be coming to this state because it is going to be exactly the kind of place where we build that post-imperialist, post-white supremacist, post-capitalist future where every single human being can thrive and show up as who they are. Me as a, you know, Muslim praying 5 times a day. You as a trans Buddhist, you know, keeping your spiritual traditions and being who you are.
Absolutely.
And having every last one of us, you know, watching our neighbors back for their collective liberation and their rights, not to try to police who they are.
Hands down, and that's it. And so all I need from you, I need from you is to not just make me your only Black trans friend, right?
I actually have like
I know you right. So what I mean is, like, here's what would be messed up, and this has happened before in the past with other
organization. That's not how this happens.
Yeah, so we could be having this lovely conversation right here on your YouTube channel, but you wouldn't invite me on the main stage. But we know that that's not the case here, that I'm going to be also on the main stage, because what you said in the beginning is the reason why we are attacked so many times is because they don't think we got people, that we have social capital. So what I need you to know is that, especially in the Bay Area and other areas like that, we got folks who will flank you. There's the trans community, the Trans Latin Coalition. There are all these other organizations that are out there. These folks have not just been like serving our community. They've been working on policy. So you got LGBTQ people. There's a Transgender Law Center. There's other places that are out in the Bay Area and Los Angeles that can be of support to your movement if you let them and if you embrace them as family. We got your back, baby.
We're inviting them all in, and I'll just do the sales pitch. We also inviting them to come out on February 7th from 1 to 4, because we're gonna have Roger Waters performing, Lauren Haregi performing, Angelica Ross addressing the people, myself addressing the people, Fernando de Veras, brilliant Mexican-American organizer from Santa Ana coming up. We got a local band, incredible brothers from San Jose State University.
Yeah.
We're going to have an incredible performance because I already mentioned Assata Shakur's biography a moment ago. Assata Shakur said that all revolutions are rooted in love. And this is like an opportunity for us to build those bonds of affection and solidarity with everybody up on the stage at the same time, everybody in the cipher, understanding that our willingness to fight and sacrifice so that the human dignity, of our sibling in humanity is accepted is not contingent upon us being exactly like them or sharing their identity. It's a solidarity that goes beyond identity or ideology and is rooted in our humanity. And as soon as that humanity is honored and respected at the baseline, man, we unstoppable.
Unstoppable at the baseline.
That's it. Well,
you don't even gotta ask. You got my endorsement. Listen, the reason why you got my endorsement, Mr. Butch Ware, is because you right now are doing what I cannot do in this moment. For me as a Black trans woman, I don't feel like this environment's safe for me to put my hat in the ring right now. And so, I also, when I did want to run for office, I wanted to do so independently. But in the state of Georgia, so many of the Democrats were just basically telling me how that was impossible, especially in an environment where the Democrats are suing so that the independent voices cannot be on the ballot. We're not talking about the Republicans doing all this shenanigans they're doing, but we're also talking about how the Democrats, who say they are the ones championing democracy, are also working for less voices to be in the room. So you are putting your hat in the ring and doing something that I would want to be doing right now with the spirit and the inclusion that I would want to be doing it right now. So since I can't, you have my full support.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to give you something, not that it's transactional, but I'm going to give you a promise in return. And that promise is twofold. The first is that you will always have a home running green as long as I'm part of this party. You will always have a home. You do not need to worry about that kind of exclusion. So you find the office that suits you. And until then, we need you as a communications advisor on the campaign. And the second thing that I'll just say is that, there's a lot that is often, demonized about some traditional conceptions of masculinity. But I was raised by men that did not need to knock women down or queer people down in order to feel like men. What my father, and especially my grandfather and my uncles taught me was that the job of a man is to make his shoulders wide so that people can walk safely right next to him. Right. So my job, and I'm going to tell you this right now, I am going to go in punching and I am going to do everything that I can do to clear a field so that you can farm in it, so that other people, can feel safe to farm in it. And we're going to have lookouts on at every position.
That's
because
we
need to have that kind of safe space. And that's the kind of manhood that I was raised up in and that I want to model. It's what I've tried to model for my 4 daughters and for my special needs son. And your endorsement means a lot to me personally. I really appreciate everything that you've brought, just kind of, asking me questions and
I appreciate you understanding that I'm not just the trans dictionary, that I have a expertise in communications across all kind of subjects, because we've been in these trenches about this October 7th myth. Right. You know what I'm saying, for a long time and other things. So I really do appreciate how when you check in with me about various things, it's not always a trans issue.
No, I mean, listen, we vibe first as Black nerds before anything else. I mean, let's just be real about that.
Very true. Very true.
Let's keep it a buck. Well, I won't hold you. We've already gone to 45 minutes, and I look forward to seeing you. I know Lauren and Roger are getting in on Friday. I know we're still working on your travel.
Yep, they did contact me. They're working on my flight right now, and I'm gonna see you there.
we'll see you there at our revolutionary rally. And thank you for spending this time with us and for sharing everything that you've had to share and for sharing who you are with us. I appreciate
Absolutely, my brother. We in this together. Yeah.
People, let's go.